Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be listening to this from. My name is Paul Holt. I am Anchore's General Manager here in EMEA, just based outside London. And welcome to this VendorDome, which is putting the security in DevOps. I'm joined by two of my esteemed colleagues today, Neil Levine from Anchore and Sam White from GitLab. And we are going to spend the next hour or so debating and asking some questions around what it means to have DevSecOps, how you want to implement that, and some of the most recent attacks and the implications that has on just the supply chain, and just generally taking questions as well from your good selves. If you want to post questions, we are in Ask the Speaker track number 4. As I say, we're live, so we are going to be taking questions as they come through. So please do not hesitate in posting the questions in there. So we'll kick things off, and the first thing which I want to pose to our speakers is essentially what DevSecOps means to you. And perhaps Sam, do you want to take the baton first and kick things off for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So DevSecOps really means that security is incorporated entirely into that software development lifecycle. So, rather than kind of the traditional approach of developing some code, throwing it over the fence to security, having them run some scans against it, and then eventually, some of those results make their way back to the development team to action on, means that it's really tightly integrated with the entire process, so that developers are able to continuously scan their code. They're able to see results right there as they get them. And that security continues both, not only during that development process, but really before the development process and hardening the developers' workstations all the way through afterwards when you ship it into production and you continue to secure it. So DevSecOps to me really means that security has become part of that entire process, and it's just a piece of what we do as we develop software.
Neil, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I remember when DevOps came up as a term of art in the industry that I think Adam Jacobs, who's one of the people who sort of helped promote it, always said it's a cultural movement as much as anything else. It's about creating a culture where, for DevOps, it's about having developers and operations collaborate together and not see each other as siloed organizations, and that they should collaborate together. So he always emphasized the cultural aspect, which was that organizationally you had to change things up and see yourselves working as a group. And so I think DevSecOps, if you extend that sort of concept or sort of way of looking at it, is absolutely about bringing security into the process and having developers and operations and see them as part of the working group to ship an application and not as a group to throw something over to. So Sam's absolutely right. I mean, in practice, what that means is you need to have security checks implemented everywhere. Security need to advise on where you need to be doing security checks and helping structure those such that it is part of the day-to-day workflow. But it's important not to overemphasize the tools and the technology, because we're vendors, we tend to do that, of course, but it's absolutely about a collaboration thing where even when you're sitting down and you haven't written any code and you're having your design meetings, everything else, that's security there as part of it. So it's important not to sort of strip out the human element. But yes, what it means for most organizations today is that they're integrating security into development and not leaving it right till the end, which is traditionally where it's been implemented.
Yeah, and I think on that very point, in terms of some of the challenges that we have seen, as vendors, as we talk to organizations about implementing security into their CI/CD and their software development processes, what are the sort of the typical challenges that we've seen as organizations have tried to embed security into these development workflows? Neil, please.
Yeah. So there is still, I think this is where, when I say some organizations are not doing DevSecOps, it's because we still interact with security teams who are sort of playing catch up to where the developers have been. So often the developer and the operations side has moved faster in terms of building automation and building that whole end-to-end pipeline. And the security team are playing catch up to that and working out where they can add things. And the telltale sign that we often see is a security team who don't know what's going on in the development process, but have seen like a container registry appear with a whole bunch of content, and they've got to go and work out what's inside it, or they're starting to be asked to produce reports or audits. And so often that's a sign of, well, you're not quite doing DevSecOps, even if you do have a few security checks implemented in the system. If the security team don't know what's going on, then you don't have that cultural integration. So that's definitely been one of the markers where there is a problem. And I think it just reflects the fact that inherently developer teams do move faster than security teams. And so whether it's picking new tools or just writing code, they tend to be far more nimble and less constrained than the security teams. And so I think that's one of the frictions, is just inherent burden. Security teams have a lot to look after. They can't unshackle themselves from things once they've involved in that application. It is an ongoing process for them.
Yeah, Sam, any additions to that?
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely true. I find that from just a practical standpoint, most security organizations report up through an entirely different reporting structure from the development team. And so, where you have a security team, an application security team reporting up through a CISO or a CIO, they're just not talking a lot with development, at least in most traditional organizations. And so, they may go throw things over at development and say, hey, we found this critical vulnerability, you need to go fix it. But I find that traditionally, that's really where the collaboration starts, and that's where the collaboration ends. And it becomes kind of this unfriendly relationship where development says, the security team is trying